I didn't feel like I was in America the other night. And if this is the way you want to run the town of Barnstable, if I'm sitting in your shoes, I'd have a talk with the town attorney's office here and tell them to treat the citizens a hell of a lot better than we were on Monday night.
Good evening. It is January 5th, and welcome to Cape Media News, your source for hyperlocal news that matters. I'm Lauren Williamson. On Monday, December 18th, the Hyannis Main Street Waterfront Historic District Appeal Committee met to report the latest on the petitions made to appeal the committee's approval of Wind Development's application for the Harbor View housing development. Some citizens felt strongly that the commission overlooked their own guidelines when approving the project and called for the committee to remand the matter. At the meeting, the public was informed that the town attorney deemed their appeal invalid, and the meeting ended after mere minutes. Outraged by the lack of opportunity for discussion, some citizens, including John Julius, spoke out at the Barnstable Town Council meeting later that week.
So Monday night, let's talk about Monday night. You talk about a travesty. You talk about an injustice. Here, let me read the definition of due process. And I don't care how many lawyers follow me to this podium in the next half hour, 2 hours. I don't care. I'm not going to listen to what they have to say. I can understand law just like they can. Due process, fair treatment through the normal judicial system, especially as a citizen's entitlement. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm one of those three appellants that wound up on the front page of the Cape Cod Times today. And it's a travesty what happened. And what happened was we didn't even have 2 seconds to speak because the town attorney's office in this building, who seemingly could care less about residents and citizens, took it upon themselves to write a written legal opinion. You know who writes written legal opinions? Courts and judges. I can tell you that I saw, and it was after the fact. You talk about unfairness. I saw a letter dated December 14th from the town attorney's office. And in that letter, 4-page letter, which wasn't signed by anyone that I could see, she cited, or they cited, some 10 or 12 cases, okay? I have case law myself right here. And I also saw a letter dated the next day, the 15th, from the developer's own attorney, okay? And so I'd like to know, was there any correspondence between them back and forth? Why didn't myself and the other 2 appellants see the copies of those letters rather than come into this building with 25 or so people, sit in the back room here, and then have the appeals committee read a simple sentence that, sorry, the town attorney feels that you have no standing? I have news for you. There is a case in case law in the Massachusetts Appellate Court from 2018. It was called the Montgomery versus Nantucket Board of Selectmen. And here's what it basically stated in essence, that the Massachusetts Appellate Court stated that Montgomery, that was the person looking for standing, can be based upon both an individualized injury that includes visual impacts from abutting properties and public places by, quote unquote, individuals who demonstrate a legitimate concern for protecting the integrity of a historic district. That's where I live, right down the street. I don't have standing? Oh, yes, I do. And if we were in a court of law, I bet the judge would find that. The other thing that I didn't even have the chance to say was the town owns the parking lot that abuts that building. I happen to be a taxpayer like the other 2 appellants. As far as I'm concerned, I do have standing because I pay taxes and the town owns the parking lot. But that's for another day. That's for a higher court. The last thing that I would like to basically tell you is that if I can, you could, with all due respect, my Christmas present, I guess, might be an extra minute. But nevertheless, I would just simply read this to you. And this came from that Supreme Court, that Massachusetts Appellate Court case. Finally, it should be noted, quote unquote, a review of standing based on all the evidence does not require that the fact finder ultimately find a plaintiff's allegations meritorious. To do so would deny standing after the fact to any unsuccessful plaintiff. Rather, the plaintiff must put forth credible evidence to substantiate his or her allegations. In this context, standing then essentially becomes a question of fact for the trial judge, not for the town attorney's office in this building, and not for any developer's attorney who wants to go and waltz their own interpretation. Here's the last thing I'll leave, and again, I thank you for the extra time here. No judicial or quasi-judicial body like the committee designed to hear appeals is supposed to make a first and last unilateral announcement without giving parties the opportunity to be heard. I didn't feel like I was in America the other night, and if this is the way you want to run the town of Barnstable, if I'm sitting in your shoes, I'd have a talk with the town attorney's office here and tell them to treat the citizens a hell of a lot better than we were on Monday night. Thank you again.
On Tuesday night, electricity generated by the first Vineyard wind turbine was transmitted to New England's power grid. While Avangrid just missed their December 31st powerization goal, the long-awaited moment came only 2 days later when approximately 5 megawatts of power was transmitted from the offshore wind farm. In a statement issued on Wednesday, Avangrid and Copenhagen's infrastructure said they have planned to have all 5 turbines operating at full capacity earlier this year. Governor Maura Healey commended this important step, saying that, quote, "This is a historic moment for the American offshore wind industry. Soon, Vineyard Wind will be producing power equivalent of over 400,000 Massachusetts households. As we look ahead, Massachusetts is on a path toward energy independence, thanks to our nation-leading work to stand up to the offshore wind industry." Chatham Fire Department had their busiest year on record in 2023. Total incident responses added up to 3,276. The Fire Rescue Department issued a statement that broke down the incident data into categories designated by National Fire Incident Reporting System. The Fire and Rescue Department responded to 46 fires, 3 instances of explosion or overheating, 2,046 rescue and emergency medical services, 111 hazardous conditions, and 512 false alarms. The total data can be viewed on Chatham Fire Department's Facebook page. Thank you to the people of the department for their dedication and commitment to providing the highest quality fire and emergency medical services. The town of Barnstable DPW Structures and Grounds Division announced the permanent closure and imminent demolition of the Osterville Recreation Building at 93 West Bay Road. The work is expected to take a few months, during which the adjacent tennis courts, ball field, and playground will remain open, while some parking will be closed. The demolition of the Osterville Recreation Building, coming after the demolition of the Osterville Bay School on the same property in 2017, continues the work of the late town councilor James Crocker, who sought to rebuild a more functional community and recreation center in Osterville. Coming up after the break, Yarmouth discusses their town seal. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Lauren Williamson. The Yarmouth Town Seal Review Committee recently unveiled its draft of a new town seal. Discussions about altering the seal began back in 2021, when it was suggested that the 128-year-old seal may need some updating. Since then, the Town Seal Review Committee has conducted surveys and met with the Herring, Pond, and Mashpee Wampanoag tribes to discuss and conduct research.
Basically, if we kind of start with just, this main figure, the kind of Native American figure, which is inappropriate, and the teepee, which we know is not correct, and kind of focus on what's over here that's kind of in the background, that's kind of what we focused on. Point Gammon Light at the end of, Great Island, we kind of brought that to the foreground. We also brought the two-masted schooner, which we kind of see on the wall here, as another kind of key element. And then the main element is this eastern white pine, which is kind of key to the Wampanoag creation myth, but also very significant for the history of Cape Cod. A pine that grows in sandy soil. The other things that we've kind of tried to incorporate are this idea of the Wampanoag word Metakis, meaning big or great sky. This idea of this sky and trying to illustrate that feeling. And then as you kind of look at the background texture that we put there, this line work, which is all very hand-done feeling, has almost like a little bit of a reference to the striations in wampum. So again, a little bit of a connection with that. We've kept the rest of it pretty traditional. I think the whole thing with its hand-drawn feel has a little bit of a historic vibe. This was all done in scratchboard, which is a very traditional style of illustration. It's not done on the computer. It's all done by hand. It looks like it could have been done 130 years ago. And we've also kept the nautical rope border, which again, I think, like the water, which is one of the key things, the beaches and the Bass River and the bay, are one of these things that connects us to what makes this town unique. And so we've kept this kind of nautical reference to this rope border.
If you'd seriously consider putting this on the warrant, we have work to do. I know you have a timeline of, I think, January, when you have to make a decision on putting it on the warrant. We would urge you to do that, and then we'll be taking it from there if you choose to do.
Of like I said, some definitive publications about the story, their creation story, and how the pine tree fits into that. I'd be very anxious to see it and read it.
Mr. Chairman, that'll be top on the list to get that kind of detail.
Okay, thank you. I want to, again, like my colleagues, commend you for all your hard work and appreciate you coming in here tonight. And these discussions are very, very interesting. I'm interested in history and cultures of different people and things like that. And they're great things to talk about, great things to get educated about. And we appreciate all your work and appreciate your artwork as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for the time. We appreciate it.
The new seal removes the native person from the design, who is depicted carrying a bow and arrow and standing in front of a teepee, and replaces him with an eastern white pine tree. While some, including Selectman Mark Forrest, pointed out that removing a native person from the seal seems like a step backward, Vice Chair of the Historical Commission, George Slamma, says the seal's depiction is inaccurate to Wampanoag culture. Brian Whedon, the chairman of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe, said in a special commission meeting that having a person on a seal can be difficult because one person isn't representative of everyone in the community. In his consultations with the tribe, Slamma learned that the white pine tree is centered in Wampanoag creation myths, where Wampanoag people were created from the roots of a white pine tree. Melissa Ferretti, chairman of Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe, says that Yarmouth's efforts are progressive and in line with the education that needs to be continued not only on the Cape and in Massachusetts, but across the country. $372 million were awarded to the Massachusetts Department of Transportation on December 15th toward the replacement of the Sagamore and Bourne bridges. The Healy-Driscoll administration applied for this grant in August from the Federal Multimodal Project Discretionary Grant Program, one of many grant applications submitted for the funding of the Cape Cod Bridge project. The money will go towards the phase 1 of the project, replacing the Sagamore Bridge. MassDOT, working with the United States Army Corps of Engineers, has applied for over $1 billion more to complete the funding of the new Sagamore Bridge. Now that an initial down payment has been made, Governor Healy says the administration will continue their aggressive competition for federal funding toward the Cape Cod Bridge project. In Mattapan on December 30th, firefighters responded to a call that took a dangerous turn when shots were fired from an apartment building. Firefighters arriving at 50 Fairlawn Avenue following an 11:35 a.m. call heard gunshots, prompting an immediate police response. Boston Police, SWAT, and hostage negotiation units secured the building, evacuating residents and utilizing drones to pinpoint the source of the gunfire. The suspect was apprehended after sustaining a minor lower body injury, likely from escaping through a window. A firearm was recovered at the scene. Despite the intensity of the situation, only the suspect suffered injuries. Boston Police Commissioner Michael Cox assured the public that the incident is resolved and there's no ongoing threat. Firefighters successfully extinguished the blaze that started on the first floor and extended to the upper levels. As of late Saturday night, the suspect was reported to be hospitalized and facing multiple felony charges. The town of Chatham will hold their third and final community engagement meeting to look at potential affordable and attainable housing development scenarios on the town-owned properties at Main Street in West Chatham and Meeting House Road in South Chatham. During the meeting, consultants Barrett Planning Group and Dodson and Flinker will present design concepts that demonstrate development possibilities based on feedback from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, Chatham residents at prior meetings, and from online housing surveys. After the meeting, the town will focus on the development of each site using the design concepts to inform the requests and proposals expected to be issued in February. This community engagement session will be on Wednesday, January 17th at 6 p.m. at the Town Office Annex on George Ryder Road or online at chatham-ma.gov. The Yarmouth Police Department is asking for the public's help following the recent vandalism at Packett's Landing in South Yarmouth. On New Year's Day, police discovered writing and drawings in red paint covering the stairs and the beams at the landing. While Yarmouth DPW will be repainting the steps soon, anyone with information is encouraged to call the Yarmouth Police non-emergency line at 508-775-0445, extension 0, or email Officer Exaros at aexaros@yarmouth.ma.us. Coming up after the break, HR in Harwich. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Cape Media News. I'm Lauren Williamson. You can't spell Harwich without HR. The Harwich Select Board continued their discussion this week on whether to hire a dedicated human resources employee for the town.
Is there any discussion by board members on the item? Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It does make clear up front the line of authority, and it actually is a lot better and cleaner than what it started out with. It works in collaboration with us and through the town administrator. So as a start, this is really much better.
Jeff?
I support this.
Okay. Michael?
Just on that collaboration piece, in reading the charter, doesn't this go hand in hand if we're going to have a department head working with the Board of Selectmen that we need a charter change to accomplish this, or are we going to just fly in the face of that again?
Don?
I think Michael's absolutely correct. I mean, ultimately, if we do this, you're probably going to have to amend the charter in general because the personnel duties are all delegated in one direction, and there's no mention of anything like this. So it would have to, be altered to do that. But I think we got plenty of time to be able to put an article together that would support the ability to put this job description out.
So just for clarification, we're talking about, I believe, two separate issues. We're talking about either this HR position, as I was saying, would grow into a stronger position that would report directly to the board. This is set up to report to the town administrator. So this can go forward. And then eventually, if we were going to do that, we would take that action. But for now, if we bring this to this town meeting, this is, the structure is that it would report to the town administrator. And then if we want to move forward with that, that's basically a 2-year process.
I just think it poses a question. And for me, from the beginning, it makes absolutely no sense in some of the scenarios that were mentioned to have a human resource person that's going to do exit interviews and everything else that doesn't have the ability to report to the Board of Selectmen. And if we do, we should have a charter change in conjunction with this that allows it. Across the board, Julie, I don't want to get involved in intakes. I don't want to get involved in paperwork and 401ks and health insurance. But if we're going to have a reporting mechanism to the Board of Selectmen on maybe a problem on the higher level, shouldn't we have it, and if they're going to work collaboratively with us, a charter change allowing that? That's my question.
So if the word collaborative is sort of the thorn for you, then we can certainly revise it. I see this position as necessary now, and if it's a position that it strengthens going forward for a charter change, that's fine. But ultimately, this gives people a resource, relieves the ATA currently doing all of these items, gives one place to go, gives streamlining of onboarding and training and all of these other things that are elements of bringing people in and then possibly not having a streamlined approach to all those people getting their benefit information, having one place to go. Well, it doesn't all have to be about complaints. HR is a multitude of things. So to me, this strengthens staff, has one place to go. It alleviates some of the current job load on the ATA. And again, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing this position grow into the position you've described. But I don't want to wait to bring somebody on board that can help staff and better improve the personnel ability for staff on multiple levels. So I would like to see this go forward now, and I wouldn't be adverse to seeing it grow into a stronger position reporting specifically to the board. But if there's, and this is why we're discussing it, if there's room, for revisions and other ways to get comfortable with it, then let's have that discussion.
I just follow that it's been brought up by several, and I understand what you're saying. So a kind of human resource department to handle all of the other stuff is fine. I don't want anyone in the public or anyone at home in the public to be misguided thinking that we are addressing some of the things that they've asked us to address. Because every town that has a human resource department that I've been able to talk to said if you're looking, or if somebody is looking for a place for people internally to go that may have a problem with administration on any level, not just the town administrator, it's not going to happen, and they don't do it. Mm-hmm. So I don't want anyone thinking that we're hiring this human resource piece and it's going to fix what people in the public are saying, that the people have nowhere to go to complain about administration, or maybe even the board. But in general, I don't see how it makes any sense having human resource on those levels sit in administration. So I think it's a twofold piece, and I think 90% of the responsibility would fall on administration, but that other 10% I think we really need to think about if we're going to do it. I don't see why put a position in place when you could do it all right now with a charter change at the same time and hire right now.
So can I just ask a follow-up question in terms of this going forward as a charter change this year? You'd have to have sufficient time for public hearings, be able to have all of those under your belt, and then have a revised final draft for an article. Is that correct, or am I speaking out of turn?
If I'm hearing the board correctly, if you're looking at a charter change through the process we've used most recently related to water wastewater commissioners, name change and things like that. It has been an article at town meeting. If adopted by town meeting, it goes to the Attorney General within 10 days for a cursory review. They basically say there's nothing illegal about it. After that blessing from the Attorney General, it then goes to the next year's annual town election.
Right, so it's basically, not maybe technically a 2-year, but it's a year and a half.
Covers 2
process.
calendar years
Right.
in about a 13-month period.
And so that's my concern, is I would like to see this position in place coming forward. I don't see any reason that we would wait. And I mean, I understand your opinion, but for me, I think it's an important thing to start now. Is there any other discussion, Michael?
And I understand the 2 years. I would just say that supporting this in conjunction with a charter change, I get that it's going to take 2 years, makes more sense to me than just doing this on its own and then thinking we're going to bring it back a year from now or 2 years from now, or do it 5 years from now. So I would like to see it in conjunction with a charter change. Approve it now to go before town meeting, but in conjunction with starting the charter change process.
And get it on the slate for, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, if, in terms of strengthening the position, I just want to emphasize that, HR isn't only, and again, everybody needs a place to go if they have a complaint, so I'm fully supportive of that. But I also just want to point out that HR isn't always about the complaints, so.
Can I make a motion, or I'd like to make a motion that so that Jeff's got something in his hands, that we ask the Charter Bylaw Committee to write a charter change that it addresses the fundamental relationship that Michael's talking about.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for joining us this evening. If you have a story that you would like to see covered, send us an email at newstip@capemedia.org. Tune in every week for more hyperlocal news that matters on Channel 26, Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media, including Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. For Cape Media News, as always, I'm Lauren Williamson.